Comenzamos con las oraciones antes y después con la alabanza al Buda Shakyamuni. Maestro, destructor de enemigos, has sido Buda completa y perfectamente despierto, dotado con sabiduría y conducta ejemplar, ido al gozo, timonero que guía a los seres ordinarios que aún deben ser domados, Ser supremo, Maestro de todos los dioses y los hombres, Buda, destructor de enemigos, glorioso y victorioso Ser Shakyamuni. Ante ti me postro y a ti voy por refugio. Maestro, destructor de enemigos, has sido Buda completa y perfectamente despierto, dotado con sabiduría y conducta ejemplar, ido al gozo, timonero que guía a los seres ordinarios que aún deben ser domados, Ser supremo, Maestro de todos los dioses y los hombres, Buda, destructor de enemigos, glorioso y victorioso Ser Shakyamuni. Ante ti me postro y a ti voy por refugio. Maestro, destructor de enemigos, has sido Buda completa y perfectamente despierto, dotado con sabiduría y conducta ejemplar, ido al gozo, timonero que guía a los seres ordinarios que aún deben ser domados, Ser supremo, Maestro de todos los dioses y los hombres, Buda, destructor de enemigos, glorioso y victorioso Ser Shakyamuni. Ante ti me postro y a ti voy por refugio. Ahora leemos el Sutra del Corazón de la Perfección de la Sabiduría. Así lo oí. Una vez el bendito estaba residiendo en Rayagrilla, en la montaña llamada Pico del Buitre, junto a una gran asamblea de monjes y una gran asamblea de bodhisattvas. En ese momento el bendito entró al samadhi que expresa el Dharma, llamado iluminación profunda, y al mismo tiempo el noble Avalokiteshvara, el bodhisattva Mahasattva, mientras practicaba la profunda perfección de la sabiduría, vio lo siguiente. Vio que los 5 skandhas son de la naturaleza del vacío. Entonces, por el poder del Buda, el venerable Shariputra le preguntó al noble Avalokiteshvara, el bodhisattva Mahasattva, ¿cómo debe entrenar un hijo o una hija de familia noble que quiere practicar la profunda perfección de la sabiduría? Entonces el noble Avalokiteshvara, el bodhisattva Mahasattva, le contestó al venerable Shariputra, oh Shariputra, un hijo o una hija de familia noble que desea practicar la profunda perfección de la sabiduría debe practicar así, viendo lo siguiente, que los 5 skandhas son de la naturaleza del vacío. La forma es el vacío también es la forma. El vacío no es otra cosa que la forma. La forma no es otra cosa que el vacío. De la misma manera, los sentimientos, las percepciones, las formaciones mentales y la conciencia también son el vacío. Por lo tanto, Shariputra, todos los dharmas son el vacío. No existen las características, no existe el nacimiento ni la cesación, no hay impureza y no hay pureza, no hay merma ni hay aumento. Por lo tanto, Shariputra, en el vacío no hay forma, sentimiento, percepción, formación mental ni conciencia. No hay ojos, oídos, nariz, lengua, cuerpo o mente. No hay apariencias, ni sonidos, ni olores, ni sabores, ni tacto, ni dharmas. No hay datu de los ojos y así hasta el datu de la mente y conciencia. No hay ignorancia ni fin de la ignorancia hasta la vejez y la muerte. No hay fin de la vejez y de la muerte. No hay sufrimiento ni origen del sufrimiento. No hay cesación del sufrimiento, ni sendero, ni sabiduría, ni logro, ni ausencia de logro. Por lo tanto, Shariputra, ya que los bodhisattvas no tienen logros, moran en la profunda perfección de la sabiduría. Como no hay obscuración en la mente, no hay tampoco temor. Trascienden lo falso y alcanzan el nirvana total. Todos los budas de los 3 tiempos, a través de la práctica de la profunda perfección de la sabiduría, despiertan completamente a la iluminación insuperable, verdadera y total. Por lo tanto, el gran mantra de la profunda perfección de la sabiduría, el mantra de la gran percepción, el mantra insuperable, el mantra inigualado, El mantra que calma todo sufrimiento debe ser conocido como la verdad, ya que no contiene falsedad. El mantra de la profunda perfección de la sabiduría es para Samgate Bodhiso. Por lo tanto, Shariputra, el Bodhisattva Mahasattva debe entrenarse en la profunda perfección de la sabiduría. Entonces el bendito salió del Samadhi y elogió al noble Avalokiteshvara, el Bodhisattva Mahasattva, diciendo: bien dicho, así es, oh hijo de noble familia, así es. Se debe practicar la profunda perfección de la sabiduría, así como has explicado, y todos los Tatagas se regocijarán. Cuando el bendito dijo estas palabras, el venerable Shariputra y el noble Avalokiteshvara, el Bodhisattva Mahasattva, y toda la asamblea de dioses, humanos, asuras y gandharvas se regocijaron y alabaron las palabras del bendito. Ahora vamos a hacer la ofrenda de mandala breve en español. En tibetano. Sashi Tomamos refugio. Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema, por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres. Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema, por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres. Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema, por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres.
Okay. Since last night, you all really enjoying the chanting. You know, so of course, when you recite the refuge in Spanish, you get the meaning, you understand. Then I thought maybe we should chant more. So I was looking at this text. Maybe I thought we were going to recite the refuge, and then I thought it's okay. Maybe I shouldn't get too excited to chanting too. I want you all chant soon. So maybe I shouldn't be hurry up. But anyway, we need to focus, of course, way to integrating the prayers with and able to chant while we're reciting in Spanish, how to chant. So maybe we need to give some effort for prayer for Buddha Shakyamuni, how we're going to don't have to be too kind of singing, but some kind of nice chanting. And also for the Heart Sutra, I think it's really good to, most of you have really memorized. I can see you can able to recite. I think it's really wonderful. So maybe to way to look at to chant in a Spanish or Spangle together. So that's, and then also 21 Tara prayer, some way to look at it, way to chanting. Then also specific, the dedication prayers that you do need to have some way to cultivate, way to chanting. I think it will be really beautiful. Okay. So today's topic is, let's say, why is Tantra? Okay. So first of all, you need to see Buddha's teaching, Buddha Shakyamuni teaching. It is put it into, right now in the Tibetan language, we call Gangyur. Gangyur. And Gangyur means all the teaching, Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching, which is translated in the Tibetan. And Gangyur, it have like 100 volume. In that 100 volume, it have a sutra category, and it have a tantra category, Gyu and Do. Okay, so we need to look at that one important part. Then follow our Buddha Shakyamuni, particularly in the Nalanda University or Nalanda Monastery in India, great masters, their literature, their writing, we call Tengyur. And it have 200 volumes. Okay, it is translated by Tibetan translators. So in this 200 volume, again, it have a Sutrayana aspect of a teaching, and Tantrayana aspect of the teaching. Okay, so which is a 200 volume is not composed by one person. It is composed by many variety teachers, masters. So all their teaching put together as a one category. Okay, called Tingyu. It have a 200 volumes, and the subject matter is covers really broad, but also sutra and tantra. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. Then one thing important, Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna, which is one of the great master, Nalanda master, and his own literature, when you look at it, he has his own Sutrayana teaching and a Tantrayana teaching, both. Okay, so that's one resource you have to look at it. Then also, one of the follower of the Nagarjuna called Chantaketri, which is a great, both Nagarjuna is also a Madhyamikan philosopher, and Chandrakirti is also the follower of that. He is also a Madhyamikan philosopher. He have also great intensive literature written in Sutrayana, also in Tantrayana. Okay, so now in Tibet, all the four great traditions have masters have put it Sutrayana teaching and Tantrayana teaching both. Okay, both in Nyingma, both in Kagyu, in Sakya, and Gelug. All the masters have input in both areas of teaching Sutrayana and Tantrayana, which is basically a style or tradition coming from the Nalanda tradition from India. So they brought that kind of knowledge, tradition into in Tibet. So it's nothing Tibetan is coming to Nalanda tradition from India. Now particularly when you look at Lama Tsongkhapa himself, and in the Gelug lineage, he have a Sumbumpe Chobge, 18 volume that he composed it. His, dissertation or whatever we're going to call his writing literature. And it have Sutrayana and Tantrayana both. However, 70% of within the 18 volume is a 70% measure is he put it into the Tantrayana teaching. So in Lama Tsongkhapa, in Gelug lineage, he is very much strong into Tantrayana teaching. Okay, there's a very strong of a literature, tantric philosophy, tantric understanding. There's a little bit ritual aspect, and really particularly in a Guhya Samaja Tantra. Of course, Lama Tsongkhapa have written into all different tantras, but particularly in the Guhya Samaja Tantra, he have worked really intensive. Like for example, Tantric College, those two great Tantric college are basically Lama Tsongkhapa's, his main intention is to preserve that Guhya Samaja Tantra, which is translated by Marpa from India. And, Lama Tsongkhapa put such a very strong effort to, making commentaries and clarity, and to preserving that tradition. I think there's the story, he asked somebody to volunteer, who's going to preserve my tantric teaching, and Jizun Sherab Singhi, one of the great masters, he volunteered. I will follow up and take care and preserve your teaching in Tantrayana. And I think Lama Tsongkhapa gives several different objects of a tantric rituals object to him as appreciation, or so on and so forth. So from that point of view, it becomes a very lots of great masters in India and great masters in Tibet put it really strong emphasis. With the understanding, with a philosophical background, with an explanation. It's not just ritual. It's very little ritual. You know, sometimes tantric we see is a lot of rituals, the sadhanas to recite. It's not about that. It's about explanation. And the Nagarjuna also have a lot of philosophical explanation into Tantra. Okay, so that's kind of like from the literature point of view. Okay, now in today's world, how many translation, you know, those rich literature, how much it was able to translate in English, in Spanish. You know, it's important to translate in also in Spanish. You know, I usually encourage some of my friends in France. I said, you know, from you know, when you go through different language, things can lost into the language. Things can be so something directly able to translate. You know, that's so. Also, this is the time, I think right now, both sides of the culture exists, you know. So therefore, I think in the later, maybe like after like 50 years or 100 years later, we need to translate, it will be like complicated. It will be interpreted, and it will be like, yeah, translations are one of the really, you know, translator, they work so hard. They get very little credit. So that's not good. But anyway, lots of, in any text, in a translation that happened from Sanskrit to Tibetan, there's a structure was built by reading from the beginning. Before you go into the subject, you know it was a translated. And end of the text, there's a homage and prayer for whoever translator who did it. There is something recognition end of any text. So okay. So now from the literature point of view, we can see this kind of richness. Now when you look at from the Pacific, from Lama Tsongkhapa tradition, when he composed this great Lamrim Chemo, and he's composing this great gradual path to enlightenment, this Lamrim Chemo. You know, there's a one outline is also about way to engaging into the Tantrayana vehicle. It's very at the end, but he didn't put a little bit there. It's kind of like introducing. You don't have a very clarity, more not in the detail into it. Just kind of introduction, showed brief introduction over there. However, the system, how structure Lamrim Chemo itself, way it's structured. It is structured into individual practitioner for preparing to entering into a Tantrayana path. You know, so it is the reason why behind there, although Lamrim Chemo is a huge volume of explanation, but when you're looking from the, for example, great scope. Great scope have a detailed explanations how to develop bodhicitta mind and bodhisattva vows. Then goes through the 6 paramita explanations, but not necessarily gives a detailed explanations about the 10 bhumis of the bodhisattva path, not necessarily go through detail. So basically, it gives the fundamental foundation preparation. So basically, Lamrim Chemo will be like kind of like a preliminary introduction for Tantra, we can say that. So preliminary in terms into the Tantra, not so much from the knowledge point of view, also, of course, the knowledge also involved, but the lots of internal preparation that individual practitioners have the view of understanding of ultimate reality. And not only that, having this bodhisattva intention. And bodhisattva intention is developed based on a medium scope. And that medium scope preparation goes through the small scope. So So fundamentally, uh, uh, inner, how you say, prerequisite of the joining into Tantayana becomes concept of these three principles of the path. The path of renunciation, path of bodhicitta, then path of realizing emptiness. So that's kind of like how things are structured. Okay. Now we can look at it today's, including myself. Lots of you have received lots of tantric empowerment, and then suddenly, wait a minute, what is happening? And same thing myself, since I was my first retreat, a month-long retreat when I was maybe 8 years old or 9 years old, something like that. Month-long retreat. We did as a group. Received the empowerment, and remember right after receiving empowerment, trying to keeping the commitment. The sadhanas, trying to. My memory was quite serious. Looks like that time to keep the commitments, and but there is a kind of like a respect and joy there, but there's nothing understand at all what's going on. And just like blah, blah, blah. Oh, I should do this. I have to do this because I received this one, and that's it. And then, just kind of like going through. So, in such a case, although until, the good thing is, until we are enlightened, we are not perfect. Nobody is perfect until enlightenment. Until enlightenment, there's like a huge space for excuse. So, so basically, from the structure point of view, it have some kind of like a foundation. Okay, we have to have this, we have to this, we have to this, and we have to have this. This is how it works. When in reality, in the ground, looks like everything is upside down, almost like before you get any sutra teaching, you got all the tantric teaching, the high yoga tantric teaching, and I got in the retreat already before knowing anything. But in such a case, also we need to understand our faith and conviction play also important role. That you have a faith and devotion for that Vaja master, a faith and devotion to that tantric path. Although you're not necessarily knowing the details of how the function it is, that conviction and that respect plays a very important role also. Okay. In another hand, you can have all detailed understanding how it works, how this is, all this, but you don't have any faith. Is again same ground. It doesn't help anything. So here, based on the so in a lot of time in today's, not necessarily, okay, now I'm graduate from the medium scope, now I'm graduate from the great scope, now I'm going to enter into the Tantrayana vehicle. It's not necessarily that kind of structure as a built up. However, the faith and the conviction for the Vaja master, for the Yidam, for the Tantric path, once you have that conviction and faith, and that faith have also space to grow. But regardless, it is that kind of like a pure conviction. And so it is still carries the blessing of the lineage. And I remember that must be like, I must be like 5 or 6 years old. Half of the time I was asleep in the part of the initiation. And in the Bhaja Yoga initiation, part of that you have to visualization and take this Ling means there's a little bit things you have to put the fire inside, and then you kind of visualize. I remember that very clear. I was like, and my parents, you have to take it. So when I was 6 years old, I got already high yoga tantric empowerment. Well, so anyway, and that faith and that respect, uh, you know, I think it plays also very important role. Okay, so in that case, we should understand into. Okay. Now then we look at it. What is the difference between the sutra and tantra? And sutra is the Sanskrit word, and tantra is also Sanskrit word. There is not necessarily translation of a sutra. We don't know how to translate sutra in English. So it's just everybody says sutras. And maybe we can just say Buddha's teaching is just kind of meaning translation. Is nothing necessarily actual we are translating. So sutra. So here. From the nature of the practice, what I feel in a sutrayana, it really prepares your intention and your view of reality. So sutrayana really prepares your intention and view of reality, and in tantrayana, how to integrate entire our existence to journey to path to enlightenment. So in the nature of a training in a sutrayana, it's just so much about much more in a consciousness, in your mind, your thought, and your intention, and your view. It's much more in a consciousness level. We as a human being, we have not only consciousness, we have a form, we have a matter, we have different things. So in another way to look at it, in a tantrayana, all the five aggregate, we carry all the five aggregate put together into the strength, put together to working towards to the progress into the spiritual path. In the sutrayana, within the five aggregate, we'll say like much more towards the mental aggregate, have a much more towards that. So I think that integration is a much more stronger in a tantrayana. So therefore, it have a progress and transformation have a much more rapid and effective. And because of that, it is a it's considered as a very powerful. Okay. Now, one thing in a tantrayana, tapshi nisumeva dojisumbe nenjor. Tapshi nisumeva, indistinguishable of wisdom and the method practice. So in the tantrayana is a lots of kind of like a cutting through duality kind of approach on the spiritual path. So very much in a non-dual, not from the point of view of a view, non-dual in terms, for example, wisdom and method. It is all are able to cultivate into one mental continuum. So it is the emphasis into a very non-dual journey of a path to enlightenment, non-dual states. It's not from the viewpoint of view, from the nature of the existence of the consciousness itself. Okay. Okay. For example, in Sutrayana, Shine and Laktong, kind of like a graduate. First you develop Shine, and then after that you develop Laktong. Now in the Tantrayana, it encouraged to simultaneously, by not like a graduate kind of process, Shine, karma abiding, and the Laktong, especially inside, to able to cultivate in a one in a simultaneous, in a one method. That kind of like a tabjinism, doji senben nenjo. So ultimately, Tantra is the integration of our body, speech, and mind entire into a path. So that's, I think, a very effective. Okay. Now we look at into, within the three principles of the path. Conventional bodhicitta, the bodhicitta that, developed through compassion, that bodhicitta, sometimes word bodhicitta in a tantra use slight different terminology, but in this case, the bodhicitta that wish to obtain enlightenment, purpose of benefiting sentient being, such a state of a mind is nothing different in a tantra and a sutra. And any practice of a tantra, when you're doing that, that kind of intention and that kind of inspiration is required and mandatory and need to be developed and based on that kind of inspiration. Okay. Now, when you look at to the wisdom realizing emptiness, view of emptiness, whatever we meditate in a sutrayana, meditation of emptiness, there's nothing different in a tantrayana, also meditation in emptiness. It is just basically exact same and empty of intrinsic existence. You meditate into that, but the difference is in a tantrayana, you are trying to that kind of a subject mind, the mind which is going to observe or experience into the emptiness, it have approach different. It is kind of like a gradually becoming this more subtle mind, and basically subject ultimate reality, subject ultimate. When you say ultimate truth, there's a subject ultimate truth and object ultimate truth, and the Tantrayana is a much more approach from the subject ultimate approach. But to be able to have a precise subject ultimate approach, you have to go through really precisely the object ultimate approach. That basically means through the logic process, meditating to the meditation of emptiness. Okay, so fundamentally, if I'm saying that is from the in a Tantrayana, the subject mind is a slight different. The subject mind, which is a meditating emptiness, because in a Tantrayana, it describes about the mind and a subtle mind and the extreme subtle mind. So the subject mind, which is going to meditate in emptiness, it have its own journey, it have its own kind of track that becoming subtle and subtle and subtle and subtle. Okay. And traditional in the philosophical texts, in the Tantric philosophical texts, when it explains the unique quality of the Tantrayana, they call Yongda Shida Nambatumbi Lamgomba. Yongda Shida Nambatumbi Lamgomba means kind of like a full purity way of meditating is a unique into a Tantrayana. Nothing exists in a Sutrayana. Within the four unique, the specific unique, I won't necessarily go through it individual, but in a something doesn't explain in a Sutrayana, and that explains in the Tantrayana is a way to obtaining the Dharmakaya, is okay in a Sutrayana gives quite good guidelines for the practitioner. But in a Sutrayana, it not necessarily have a detailed guideline how to obtain the Buddha's Sambhogakaya or Nirmanakaya or the form body. So the Tantrayana, one unique about is not only gives the directions and advice to way to obtain the Dharmakaya, but also the, it gives some more details about how to obtain the form body, the Rupakaya. So that's something gives a unique approach or explanation which it gives in the Tantrayana. Okay? So now here, although, so as I mentioned earlier, for some individual case, you are kind of somehow fall into the tantric mandala and tantric practice, somehow surprisingly. But in some another case, if you are kind of like a very, I have one friend, he's a Zen practitioner. He spent a long time in Korea practicing Zen tradition. And then later he came to meet, slowly he entered in the Tibetan Buddhism tradition. And first he really don't want to join philosophy class. He thought it was too much. He wanted to join the meditation class. So we're doing meditation together, and we kind of like a guide through and give some structure. And he really, first, then one day I met with him and he's like, it's like, there's so many explanations. He felt like this is overwhelming for him. So he struggled a little bit, and then suddenly he really, kind of like able to get the taste and able to integrate it. And then he slowly said, okay, now I want to come to your philosophy class. First he said, no thank you, philosophy class. Just join the meditation class. Okay. So anyway, so how we know, so now into putting like in some individual case, how we know in the right time to enter into the tantric path? That's will be like a common question. And sometime in not here, and sometime in Portland, sometime different place. And when I meet with the students, and they will tell, Rimpoché, I want you to become my teacher. If I'm in a good mood, I say, okay, good, yes. If I'm in a so-so mood, then I'll say, let's try, let's see. As we both should try. So here, again, I think there's several different key factors, okay? So, should I wait until my teacher tells, okay, now you are ready to go to, what happens? I think there will be, generally speaking, we can say like a two different, Tantra practice is a very personal and very individual. So therefore, the advice that comes to one may not necessarily apply for the rest of the people. It is a very individual case to individual case. For some people, I finished this meditation, I feel very strong. Maybe teacher will say, wait, wait. Maybe for some individual practitioners, may not necessarily from the practitioner point of view, your confidence, I'm ready, and nothing, maybe a little bit kind of resist, like, oh, I'm too early, maybe there's a strong encouragement from the masters. Go ahead, you should do it. So it is so much, is not necessarily 100% standardization, I think, because Tantriana practice is a kind of need to look at from the time, look at from the individual. There's so many different measures is there. Okay, so therefore, that doesn't mean there's a general instruction. There's a general is like, yes, first you go through the training of bodhicitta, then you go to a training of wisdom realizing emptiness, get these things kind of familiar, get these things going, and then, okay, now maybe you have a good potential to do it. But when it's come to Tantra, it have a kind of a different levels of a Tantric practice. In different levels, different yidams. Now in a Tantric practice, the yidam, okay. Now also same. These two questions will be same. We have which is my yidam. This is the exact same as like which tantric journey should I take it? These two becomes kind of like a same question. So we will have a more question, which is my yidam, because we like that. Once we know this is my, and it makes me happy. So. So again, it's the same thing when you look at into the yidam practice. In an individual yidam, sometime teacher introduce, okay, feels that for that person, even though that person's side may not necessarily feel ready, not necessarily feel maybe not necessarily feel any connection at that moment. Maybe teacher have, okay, now you should go ahead into such a yidam practice. In some case, then it is the standard way of going which yidam we should have somebody's. We have to have somebody's master saying this is your yidam, and the other. It's not necessarily. It's that kind of. Also, cause and conditions also creates with your own causal conditions. Sometimes you may create very much close to individual yidams because of the causal conditions of just the causal condition. If you have a more fire causal condition, you have a more fire around you. You have more causal condition of water, there's more water around you. Just same thing is like this, nothing mystical and nothing kind of, it's just you are surrounded with this more causal condition. Okay? Just as a usual reality. So therefore you have a particular yidam you're going to practice because you have that kind of practitioner environment you are there. Okay? And that's again valid. You don't have to have somebody to come and tell you you should do it. You came through your own condition and cause, and then you are very into that practice, and that's perfectly valid. Or you don't have, so there's, in the same way, introducing of a different yidam have where you practice a different yidam is based on a different, different circumstances. Okay, so what is the relation with the yidam itself and the actual practice itself? Like when we look at it into Yamentaka Tantra or Guya Samaja Tantra or Chakrasambhara Tantra or Kalachakra Tantra, when you look at all, pretty much have a quite similar structure. Every have a generation stage, every have a completion stage. And the journey to those practice is pretty much similarity, okay? uh, now, for example, in a Lama Tsongkhapa lineage, usually is encouraged as a yidam. There's a 3 yidam. All 3 of it. When you say yidam, I only should have only 1 yidam. We can't have 2 yidam. Okay, you can have 3 yidam. If we can have 3 yidam, why not 4 yidam? So, in another way to look at it, let me put it this way. If you are going to 2 different universities, but in the one university you are trying to, kind of like a strength and in one area, and one university you is, but you as an individual person, you are a student of both 2 universities. And let's see in that way, Yidam as like a tantric university, very important university. It gives you specific areas that you want to train. Okay, so therefore, for example, some of the Yidam tradition practice gives a much more emphasis in a clear light, specialized into the clear light. Some of the Yidam practice are specialized into the illusory body eyes. And the same thing, like a different university have a different emphasis is different. So Yidam as in a way to look at it is a Yidam in one different way to look at it, as like this big mandala. Yidam, then the mandala, and as see as like a university, like this big. So this is what I feel. Another way to look at what the Yidam means. Ultimately, the point is the training is into the training into generation stage. Training is a training into the completion stage, and all the Yidam have a similar type of empowerment. So just slight different emphasis, Yidam to look at it. We shouldn't see Yidam as something there's an intrinsic creator, tantric creator deity, there is going to kind of like guided you or something. It is nothing something like that. It is mandala and principle of deity of that mandala. Okay. Okay, now Yidam stuff I can talk already. now nothing else. Okay. Now initiation. Let's talk a little bit about initiation. We all go through initiation. Uh, again, same thing, in a, to mm, to receiving initiation, initiation becomes, one of the key point to entering into the Tantra. The meaning of initiation is initiating you to practice the generation stage, you to practice that completion stage. According to the High Yoga Tantra, and the three lower Tantra, initiating to practice in yoga with a sign and yoga without sign, Tsenchegin Nenju, Semegin Nenju. There's kind of like a different approach. Now, if you are in the environment where the initiation happening, and if you have really don't have an intention to receiving, or even like just being into that environment, not necessarily means that you receive the empowerment. Okay, so that's also very important. Now, to receiving empowerment requires entire detailed visualizations, which is given during the empowerment. Is require. If you don't have that, you not receive empowerment, or what is really true story over here. I will say entire whatever give an explanation in the empowerment, part of the empowerment, the visualization in part of the empowerment. Not necessarily individual able to go through all the detailed visualization. Of course, if you can, it's great, but to receiving empowerment, I will say it's not necessarily mandatory, okay? But somehow you are constantly connected with the Vajra master during the empowerment. That focus have to be there, and as much possible to go through follow the instruction as possible. And if anything sometimes we miss it, it's not necessarily to, okay, wait a minute, let me go back there, because in the tantric empowerment, you just go like interruptively, it goes most like that. So key point over here is to receiving empowerment, individual have to have the intention plus the devotion towards to the yidam and the master. So that becomes one of the really important. So over here, Ganesha Ling, Kiti Rimpoché have given lots of, particularly the Kala Chakra Tantra initiation, lots of initiation. And then Kinsu Rimpoché, Changzi Chuji Rimpoché have given, particularly the Yamantaka empowerment. And Shedrub Rimpoché have given also Kala Chakra empowerment. But again, is important to feel fortunate, regardless, even you have lots of questions about in gray area about Tantra, that it doesn't matter. I think that's sense of a feeling of fortunate that you receive from such a great masters. Okay. And particularly here in the Ganden scheduling, we encourage individual practitioners. Part of the program, you're doing the Ngondo practice. Ngondo practice is also, we are trying to communicate from the karmic level that something purification and merit accumulation takes place. And due to that, able to, when you particularly Tantra practice, to able to practice and to have a much more profound effect into your spiritual path, knowledge is okay. I will say it will be like a knowledge and understanding will be like a 30%. Our own devotion and conviction and practice in the samaya and the merit accumulation will be the rest of the things. That's really the majority part of the things in the part of the Tantra. So therefore, one, we started through the Ngondo practice. For example, when you do some tradition, even doing a approximation retreat, is like first you have to complete the Ngondo. Basically, Ngondo is something that karmically preparing from the karmic point of view. And of course, here Ganden scheduling, many students completed Ngondo practice. I think it's a really wonderful. I think you can do several times. You don't have to be graduating from the Ngondo practice. I think it's really wonderful, really, really wonderful. I think it's that kind of. But again, and also, sometimes I face, students, because this discipline, wherever you start, you should finish it. Okay. But when you're looking, what makes you to restart? What condition makes, you finish the 60,000, now this is my second round of 60,000 going back. If you look into the condition, if this condition happens, then you should start. I think you should look at it. Basically, it is a very manageable condition, a very, very manageable condition that once you're not able to manage, then there is a really reason to restart. Very manageable condition. Okay, that's really the key thing. It is not saying something unmanageable structure was built and saying that once you're not able to do it, now you have to redo again. And that's like non-realistic. So now we have to look at it. It's very manageable. How is like, for example, if you're doing a Ngondo in a refuge, okay, usually wherever you started in that cushion, you're doing, the accumulation is accounting, okay? Don't feel you are like an accountant. Accountant. We should have an accountant department of the Ngondo. So anyway, you're doing, and what condition makes that restarting is basically, okay, something happened. Let me make, you're doing here, you're doing in your home in San Juan, then suddenly you have an issue comes, you need to go to Orlando. And then basically once you are in Orlando, to able to keep the continuity of that is basically you need to say refuge several times. If you're not able to say that refuge several times, this is a very manageable condition. When you're not able to manage, slips or something happens. So that's the kind of like the circumstance. Okay, so now you need to restart it because very manageable circumstances was just kind of lost from the spiritual path, spiritual practice, in a very manageable. So basically, if you, it not necessarily saying you have to do the whole Ngondo. You have to not necessarily recite the whole text. The refuge and 4 minutes. No, just do the refuge 3 or 4 times. You just keep that, you're able to, basically, able to bring back your attention into your practice. Okay, so that's the kind of like the, from conditional point of view, what I think it is a manageable condition. Okay. You know, even you are with a group, even you with some traveling, even with you with a, was able to reflect and remember that your commitment for that practice. And based on that, just reciting several refuge. You don't need to go back next Tuesday, start from the zero, from scratch. Okay? So even we forget that sometimes possibility, possibility, it is not impossible, it is possible. So that's, in such a case, things happens, and then, restarting, restarting. We can't rewind the day, so we had to restart it. Okay, so that's one thing that I think. Then plus, you want to practice have a no deadline, so that's the good news. So no deadline, very manageable condition. So I think you don't need to freak out. So so once you keep this in your mind, so I think practice, you don't have to feel the fear related with the practice. Okay, it's very reasonable. It's very reasonable. Yes, just I need to basically within the 24 hour, wherever, whenever, whatever place, I need to bring that my intention to for that practice, and do few things. Okay. So so merit accumulation and coming. That's good. Okay. Now, one thing in the Tantra, basically, energy of our emotion, basically, energy of our emotion, channeling towards to the developing concentration, developing wisdom, developing devotion. So that's what really one unique approach of a Tantra. So because of that, there's a negative emotion, something arising from negative emotion, but it is a produced or conditioned through the negative emotion, but that condition will transform that negative emotion. So this is really one thing that is unique about Tantra, is any kind of emotion carries energy, and that energy channeling into a right, based on a right intention, into a right purpose or right path. So that's so in Sutrayana, in negative emotion, then we say kind of like that's a negative, need to be transformed, and there's some kind of application of an antidote towards the negative emotion. In Tantrayana, it is really looking for any kind of negative emotion. It carries the power of concentration. And when you say attachment, it have a part of that emotion carry very powerful concentration. And anger also, it plays very powerful concentration. It carries the part of this emotion. So in the Tantra, I think one thing is trying to take those quality of that emotion, that strength, instead of influenced by ego or those negative influence, it's trying to take through the bodhicitta intention and trying to kind of transform that energy into positive. So even when it's a negative emotion transforming, I think the concentration that carry through the negative emotion is a transform into a path. So that's so in the Tantra, one way to look at the bigger is it is it's a way to bring all the concentration energy that we carry through the body, speech, and mind. Any kind of concentration, concentrated energy or concentration energy. That is what Tantra trying to channel that energy into the path. Okay, like for example, even related with the general Shine training in a Tantra, the object of the concentration constantly demands much more subtle and subtle and subtle and subtle and subtle and subtle. Okay? Like for example, when we say body, grosser level of a body, subtle level of a body, extreme subtle level of a body. So it is, trying to reach or trying to integrate the most subtle, which carries the most powerful concentration, and trying to bringing that energy into the path. So therefore, okay, let's do some question answer. Any questions? Good. Oh.
I have like two questions. One is when I'm doing the Kala Chakra practice. Okay. When doing the Kala Chakra practice, and I'm to visualize the main figure, sometimes I get confused because I don't know who to visualize. If Kala Chakra, if the Vajra master that gave me the initiation, or my guru, my root guru. So sometimes I get so confused. I know they are all the same nature, but in terms of visualization, if I'm going to get trained in managing the details, well, I don't know if that's important there. I guess so, but I have that confusion. That's one of the questions. The other question is, doing the 6-session Guru Yoga, when we are in the stages of death and we are dissolving everything and elements and everything, it got my attention that the wisdoms, the 5 wisdoms also dissolve, but I don't know too much about the 5 wisdoms. So I was wondering if you could expand a little about the 5 wisdoms dissolving in the death process also.
There's a long list of demand. Okay. Okay, good, good. I shouldn't say any question. Now I'm in trouble. I put myself in trouble, so okay. Now I need to deal with it, okay? Okay. What's the first question? The visualization, okay, that's right. If you're doing Kala Chakra sadhana, then you should visualize Kala Chakra. Whatever sadhana you are doing. In the merit field, any sadhana have a merit field section. And part of the merit field, then of course, whomever you receive that lineage, that guru, you need to visualize. Visualize, but don't kick out the another gurus. But anyway, it is just, there is a kind of like because of that blessing, you kind of like visualizing that guru as a part of the merit field. But again, that's kind of like as a principle. But of course, the rest of your gurus, you also visualizing part of the merit field. That's also good. As a principle visualization, then you need to take that main guru, the wherever you receive that blessing. Okay, and then is that with the visualization is okay?
So I kind of visualize the Jidan, but also integrate all the masteries from which I receive that initiation.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So integrate, basically that means if you received the same idam from 2 masters, it doesn't matter, you need to see as a one nature, do I have to both standing side by side? Should I visualize? There's nothing like that. Nothing. You know. Maybe one day one guru, the next day another guru. Taking alternated. So it would be fair. I'm just looking. In a way, your question at the beginning level, I think we may face similar question. I think very reasonable question. And then I think it's important. Like we don't necessarily receive one yidam's empowerment simultaneously from 2 masters. not necessarily. It doesn't happen. So there is some kind of like a gap. Based on that gap, you have your own culture, practice of a culture built up already. Okay, practice of a journey you already built up. So therefore, in a later you receive from the different masters such as empowerment, and then in such a case, I think the as your familiarity, you have that first wherever you receive, you have already much more familiarity of that. Okay, so that's still. Oh, now I got the new one, so I will change the old one. It doesn't happen. So it's just familiarity, and the lineage plays the kind of like a foundation. Okay, just continue from that. And when visualization with a married field, there is basically so it's like a Bodhisattvas. When you're visualizing into the married field, is as a tomso society. It's like a kind of like a gathering, or rather than is not like kind of like a okay, here this one, now this is the next line. Is not like a, how you call it is like a gathering aspect. So so basically the masters, their seat are not signed. It's unsigned merit field. So it is so you don't need to, where I'm going to put the second, my Bhaja master, where he's going to, don't need to worry about that. It's like a gathering in the merit field. Okay, so that's it's complicated to become Bhaja master. You don't know where to. Okay. Now, dissolution process, what you're talking about, are your question about mostly the 5 wisdoms? There's an etymology of each wisdom. Let me put this way. First, let's go like what is the not word. 5 wisdom is not like the 3 wisdom that we talk. Wisdom of understanding, wisdom of a contemplation, then wisdom of a meditation. Kind of this wisdom go first, this wisdom go second, this wisdom go third. 5 wisdom have nothing that kind of things. And the 5 wisdoms are like for example, wisdom like a mirror, and wisdom like a equanimity, equal, nyamnishi and melongishi. It is it is a part of an experience of a nature of a true reality, bold wisdom of a nature of understanding of a true reality. Okay. Now, one, the wisdom like a mirror that Melon de Vichy, it is, I will say, from my understanding, is a much more specific understanding of for specific object, for specific phenomena, to understanding the nature of existence. And the wisdom of equanimity, that is a much more towards to kind of like a pervasiveness of that understanding of a reality. Okay. And then for example, like wisdom of sotogishi, individual. Is understanding of a nature of a both, not necessarily the ultimate, not necessarily the conventional, but the nature of a both, the conventional and ultimate. And then, susur madeba means, although from the ultimate point of view, all phenomena is a one nature. Okay. But it have its own trace, it have its own mark. So therefore, we have to have that kind of like a relative reality also there. So again, the wisdom of this and individual, when I say individual, not so much point of view of ultimate point of view, of a unity of a ultimate and a relative. Then there is a existence of a individual. From ultimate point, now here you create a problem, so here it becomes complicated. Okay, I think that's good. That's enough. Okay. So, so fundamentally, I think in a Tantra, and basically what I'm going to say is understanding is encouraged, awareness is encouraged, but the faith and conviction is also very fundamental. Our wisdom doesn't become kind of like destroying our conviction and faith. And our faith is not neglecting or rejecting our wisdom. Okay? So, means some kind of like a cooperation with our wisdom and our conviction. So in the Tantra, journey of a Tantra is so much into the faith and conviction. That becomes a really important part of the journey, not only in the Tantra and the Sutrayana also, that becomes really fundamental. So, and because of that kind of like inner strength, the realization in the journey in the path have a much more stronger result or much more effective. So fundamentally, in the Tantrayana, 10,000% ego giving up. Let me say this way. So that's like a really Tantra's practice is like a really not just ego transformation, but ego no any kind of slice of an ego space, and that kind of transformation or that kind of like approach is not through kind of like a force. It's just kind of like a transforming that energy into some kind of like a deity yoga. So, within this lifetime, to able to gain realization, I think we need to intern or to explode or joining or taking in a tantric path. I think that's so. In then, without the joining in the tantrayana path, there's no way to obtain into enlightenment. And so individual takes, that doesn't mean you need to drop the sutrayana and you have to 100% go through the only tantrayana, no. Individual person practitioner go entire sutrayana path and then joining into tantrayana practice also exists. Individual person joining into the tantrayana path just basically wisdom realizing emptiness, bodhicitta mind training, and then it is qualified to go through the journey into tantrayana path. So at the end to achieving enlightenment, or individual have to have entering into the tantrayana path. Okay. So that's the main thing we have to that. So therefore, one key preparation is our wisdom and our conviction, faith, have to work together to making that happen. Okay. I think that pretty much. Okay. So one question. I think last time I did it in the Kala Chakra retreat, but also the Ngondro retreat. Any kind of mantra, should we translate the mantra? That's, I think, the question was, should we recite the mantra in Spanish, or should mantra in English, or that kind of thing? So here, let's go first, before what we recite, let's go what we visualize. Should we visualize the mantra in Spanish, or should we visualize mantra in Sanskrit, or should we visualize mantra in Tibetan? Okay. The seed syllabi, like for example, like these three mantra, the Om, Ah, Hum. These three mantra, when you're doing visualization, I think when you write in Spanish or you write in English, you write the phonetic. So I think it doesn't really qualify for the seed syllable letter when you put in the phonetic. Okay. So I think even in the Tibetan, the mantra isn't mantra syllabi when you're reading. It's not based on a phonetic. It have so much closer to the Sanskrit way of getting. It's not built. Even it have a different way of writing, but it have a lot of. It is not based on a phonetic. So in a visualization case, like a syllable letter, I still question you. Is okay to do based on a phonetic letter that we do it, and that is good, but I think it's better to do either the Sanskrit or either the Tibetan syllabi letter of the Hum. Okay. So that's in a visualization case. I'll feel a little bit more. It needs to be a little bit more strict. I mean, I won't say it. Not saying it have to be, but it is need to have some structure into that, and it have a reason for that things. Now, for reciting, when you're reciting a mantra. Mantra, when you're reciting, you meant to recite in the Sanskrit, not Tibetan, neither Spanish. You don't. Now, when you read, are you read the Spanish or Tibetan or English? When you read, you can read anything. If you can read Sanskrit, that's good. If you can read the, so by reading wise, I think it's okay. In whatever letter form will be, it doesn't matter. And the last time when we're doing Ngunjo, we say, if you're reciting refuge, there is a Tibetan, and there is also Sanskrit, and there is also English or Spanish. So again, whichever in an accumulation, if you're doing accumulation of refuge, you have a three different, is the meaning-wise exactly same. But from the discipline point of view, you shouldn't change, today I'm doing this and I want to do accumulation. Like today I'm going to do it in Spanish, tomorrow or 1 week I'm going to do Spanish, and 1 week I'm going to do it in Tibetan, 1 week I'm going to do it in Sanskrit, whatever language that you're going to establishing, I think keeping that exactly, all the time. Consistency, okay? Yeah, I think there's several questions, so I think it looks like I answer pretty much everything. Okay. If something that I miss, I feel, then I can tell mañana. If I'm still missing something mañana, then I can tell them mañana, the long mañana. Not tomorrow, mañana. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Vamos a hacer entonces la oración de larga vida de nuestro maestro Yangsi Rimpoché, recordando a todos los maestros que enseñan el Dharma a través del mundo. Madre Tare, liberando del samsara. Tu Tare, liberando de los 8 temores. Tara, Madre que libera. Por favor, otorga el don de la longevidad. Por las bendiciones del Gurú, Haris y del linaje. Por los logros espirituales de los Yidam, dioses y diosas. Por los métodos hábiles de las Dakinis y los protectores del Dharma. Que podamos realizar gozosamente la esencia de nuestras esperanzas. Endun Tenzin, eres afable, benevolente y bondadoso. Por favor, permanece con nosotros durante una larga vida. Expande tus actividades iluminadas en todas las direcciones y continúa madurando y sustentándonos a mí y a todos los seres sintientes. Desde este momento y durante todas nuestras vidas, manténnos bajo tu tutela. Sé nuestro amigo, nuestro divino y virtuoso guía. Limpia la degeneración de la ignorancia. Ayúdanos a realizar rápidamente nuestro recorrido por los senderos y caminos y alcanzar los 3 cuerpos de un Buda, por la verdad de la realidad incambiable y por la bendición conjunta de la indestructible Sangha, que la esencia de estas oraciones se logre rápidamente. Y hacemos la dedicación. Que por los méritos de esta virtud pueda alcanzar rápidamente el estado de un Gurú Buda y pueda llevar a este estado a todo ser sin excepción. La mente de iluminación es suprema y muy preciada. Que donde no ha surgido surja, que donde ha surgido no disminuya, que cobre cada vez más fuerza. La visión correcta del vacío es suprema y muy preciada. Que donde no ha surgido surja, que donde ha surgido no disminuya, que cobre cada vez más fuerza. Así como el valiente Manyu y Sri Samantabhadra distinguieron los fenómenos tal cual son, Yo también dedico estos méritos en la mejor forma, siguiendo su ejemplo perfecto. Dedico todas estas raíces de virtud con la dedicación que es considerada la mejor, por los victoriosos asidos de los 3 tiempos, para poder realizar todas las buenas obras.
Okay.